Hello, my name is Paul. I'm the Accidental Bookseller. Welcome to the channel. Today it's another tag, one that I've been really looking forward to. This one, it's the well worth the read, the big books tag, otherwise known as the Mammoths. I've been nominated for this by Emily at mreads25 and also Tracy at Tracy's Nordic Light. I put their details in the notes section. Also in the notes section, I'm going to include some more videos. One by Alan at Alan's Reads, one by Aaron Facer, and another by Heroic Book Adventures. I'll explain why. When Shelly Swearingen created this tag, originally it was to be 800-page books that are well worth the read, and it's 3 or more books that you had to name that you enjoyed. When Emily created her video, she included those particular books that were well worth the read, 800 pages long, but also included 800 pages that she owned but hadn't got round to reading yet. Also, who did that were Alan at Alan's Reads, Aaron Facer, Heroic Book Adventures. So hence why I've included those videos as well, because they're all good videos. What I've done, I've expanded on it a little further still. When Aaron and Heroic Book Adventures did their videos, they included one book in there where it was a compendium of related stories. So, for example, 4 or 5 novelettes or novels about the same character. That'll become clear because I've done the same as well. I've included a section on that. Also, what I've done is I've included a section on books that I think are overrated. I'm not saying they're not well worth the read, but they're a bit overrated considering their status. There's 2.5 books there. And then I finish with one book that I don't have, that is a mammoth, that I want to get and I want to read. So, shall we start? The first one, so these are the books that I've read that are well worth the read. And obviously, it's the Lord of the Rings. This is the Return of the King. Obviously, it was written as the Lord of the Rings originally. Nothing more really to say on this because I know a few people have included this, and it's pretty obviously going to be in there, isn't it? The next one is Clive Barker's Imagica, or Imagica as I call it. This one has got a whopping 1136 pages. Sort of fantasy, sort of horror. It probably marked the time when Clive started to veer more into fantasy than horror, although there's horror elements. Probably, in my opinion, Clive's last great novel. All his stuff after this has been good, but I think this is the last great one. All opinions, of course. But that's a whopper at 1100 pages. Non-fiction time. So this particular book is The Hunt for the Yorkshire Ripper, Wicked Beyond Belief by Michael Bilton. It's 816 pages long in the current edition. I've included this because it's a really, really good detective read. If you're into detective fiction or police procedurals, give this a shot. I got this for £4 in the works. And it doesn't read like a sensationalist true crime glorification in the criminal type thing. It's a step by step, event by event, police procedural effectively. As you're going through the story, it does pop in and say, well, what is Peter Sutcliffe, what is he involved in at certain points? But essentially, it's the police project to try and catch the Yorkshire Ripper. I was a boy when this was ongoing, and it's just a really, really good read if you're into detective fiction. Although obviously it's all non-fiction, and there's bound to be stuff in here that you didn't know. And yeah, it's just a great read. This next book is 992 pages, and it's Carrion Comfort by Dan Simmons. Dan's got a reputation, a fantastic reputation for science fiction in his later years, but he started off as pretty much a horror writer. This is Carrion Comfort. He also did one called Summer of Night, which is good. Another book, Song of Carly, is another one that I've read. People do rave about Song of Carly, but it's okay. but I'm not sure it's quite worth the justification for raving about it. But Carrying Comfort, I believe, is his best horror book before he branched out into science fiction and Hyperion and Endymion and those types of books. The next book that's well worth a read, The Confessions of Aleister Crowley. I mentioned this in other videos. Completely unwrapped, never been opened since I bought this about 35 years ago, perhaps more. I first read this when I was 17, and it's just a great read about, obviously, about Aleister Crowley. Lots of stuff about his mountaineering background and campaigns to different parts of the world, hiking and mountaineering, as I say. Also, his disputes, if you can call them that, with other occult orders. It's just a very, very interesting read. I can't remember how many pages it had, and obviously I'm not going to open this to have a look. I think it was somewhere in the region of about 950, maybe somewhere between 850 and 950, I'm going to say. It was a thick meaty tome, not it was kind of, the dimensions were a bit smaller and it was thicker as a result. So the next group of books are the compendium Mammoths. And this is the complete Richard Hannay books by John Buchan. 39 Steps is in this particular series, and it's 1140, and it's got in it 39 Steps, Green Mantle, Mr. Steadfast, The Three Hostages, The Island of Sheep, all books involving Richard Hannay. And I thought I'd include this because, yeah, well worth the read. The next book was also included by Heroic Book Adventures, and it's Robert E. Howard's The Complete Chronicles of Conan, Centenary Edition. How many pages? There's a lot of pages in here. 925. Yeah, that one. And then the other meaty tome, which is another compendium, which is a beautiful book with nice silver edges. And of course, it's The Complete Fiction by H.P. Lovecraft. Really, really nice, beautiful book. 1098 pages. Yes, it is cheating because there's quite a lot of stories involved in this, but it's just an opportunity to mention it because it's such a fantastic read, and it is a mammoth. We're now getting to the section of books that are obviously still 800 pages or more, and books that I haven't quite got to yet, still on my shelf. Neil Stephenson's Cryptonomicon. Obviously, if you own a Neil Stephenson book, it's going to be included in the Mammoths section, because I'm not quite sure whether there's another guy I'm going to mention in a minute. I'm not quite sure whether Neil Stephenson actually writes anything other than Mammoths. The next one is, and I haven't seen people mention this I've watched quite a few Mammoth tags now, and no one's mentioned Tad Williams and Otherland. I kept seeing this in the bookshops when this first come out. It must be 25 years old now, and fell in love with the cover. It's just such a lovely cover, but never got around to buying it. And then I think it was about in September, October last year, so all 4 volumes in a second-hand bookshop for reasonable money, and so I pounced. A novel of dazzling ideas, non-stop adventure, and irresistible characters, Otherland, the first part of an epic new series by a master storyteller, is destined to become a landmark in imaginative fiction. So yeah, this particular one is 943. pages. And then we've got volume 2, River of Blue Fire. That's another mammoth as well. Well, actually, it's $7.96, 4 pages under technically. That's volume 2. We've got volume 3, Mountain of Black Glass. All really nice covers. And we've got volume 4, Sea of Silverlight. This one is 1260. Oh no, maybe a bit more. 1265. So that's Tad Williams. Another one I've picked up recently, Stephen King, Peter Straub. That's 809. Actually looks bigger than, quite a bit bigger than 800, but it's only just over. So yeah, anyway, Stephen King and Peter Straub, Black House. Mentioned this particular book on the 10 Untouched tag video, one that's been on my shelf for ages, and it's China Mieville's Perdido Street Station. I'm going to read the back of this. This is the first in a particular series. The metropolis of New Crobazon sprawls at the centre of the world. Humans and mutants and arcane races brood in the gloom beneath its chimneys, where the river is sluggish with unnatural effluent, and factories and foundries pound into the night. For more than 1,000 years, the Parliament and its brutal militia have ruled here over a vast economy of workers and artists, spies and soldiers, magicians, junkies and whores. Now a stranger has arrived with a pocket full of gold and impossible demand, and inadvertently, clumsily, something unthinkable is released. As the city becomes gripped by an alien terror, the fate of millions lies with a clutch of renegades and outcasts on the run from lawmakers and crime lords alike. The urban nightscape becomes a hunting ground. Battles rage in the shadows of uncanny architecture, and a reckoning is due at the city's heart, under the vast chaotic vaults of Perdido Street Station. It also particularly appeals this because it mentions uncanny architecture, and obviously if you like weird fiction, people like Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, etc., any description called uncanny architecture, you know, there's some Lovecraftian type influence going to be involved. So I've got that, and I've also got The Scar, which is third in the series. Obviously I won't read that because it's third in the series, and both that particular book and Perdido Street Station is signed by China Mieville. To Paul. And I got this when he was speaking. He did a talk on his own, and then he also did a talk with Brian Aldiss at the Cheltenham Literature Festival in roughly 2010, 2011. Amazingly, another mammoth, Brian Aldiss, which I got signed on the very same day. This is Heliconia, and this this is monumentally massive. This is 1303. This is signed by the great man, and I've also got 2 other non-mammoths signed, and I'm going to show you the signatures for all 3. Simon at Science Fiction Retirement Library got an Aldis that was signed not so long back, and I promised that I would show all 3 because they are quite reasonably varied. But he must have been, he's passed away now. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he must have been well over 80 when I met him. That's not Non-Stop that's signed. I also got Greybeard signed as well. The next one is Michael Faber's The Crimson Petal and the White. I think Tracy included this one in hers. But I saw the TV series. Well, I saw the start of the TV series about 10 years ago on, it was BBC Two. So begins this irresistible voyage into the dark side of Victorian London, amongst an unforgettable cast of lowlifes, physicians, businessmen, and prostitutes. Meet our heroine, Sugar, a young woman trying to drag herself up from the gutter anywhere she can. Be prepared for a mesmerising tale of passion, intrigue, ambition, and revenge. So I saw the first 5 minutes of the TV program, and I turned it off because I thought I want to read the book first, because I was aware of the book because it had been on the shelves for a few weeks before the first episode, and I've not got around to reading it yet. It's absolutely immaculate. One of the great thing about doing these tags, it reminds you of books that you need to read, because this is just the most beautifully textured. It's kind of like a dull but shiny book, and the pages are quite thick, and the font is nice as well. It's just a right nice feel, and it is 8.45. Still got some more. Next one. Oh, and this one, when I did the 10 untouched books tag, I forgot about this one because I think this could be the oldest book on my shelves that's been completely untouched and unread. And I got this not long after it came out. Let me see when it came out. 1990. So I've had it. I'm ashamed to say, I've had it 34 years on my shelf, and I must read it. And it's the Quincunx, The Inheritance of John Huffam by Charles Palliser. I believe it's of a Dickensian type nature. I just really must read it. I'm almost ashamed to say that I've not read this, having had it on my shelf for getting towards 35 years. I've got 3 left in this section. This is Islandia by Austin Tappan Wright. I mentioned this in the 10 Untouched Books tag as well. I only paid $2.99 for this brand new at the sister bookshop to High Peak Bookstore. Used to be near Northwich. I'll read a little bit of the back, not all of it, but a little bit. On his death, Austin Tappan Wright left the world a wholly unsuspected legacy. Among this distinguished legal scholar's papers were thousands of pages devoted to a staggering feat of literary creation, a detailed history of an imagined country complete with geography, genealogy, representations from its literature, language, and culture. In a monumental labour of love, Wright's wife and daughter culled from this material a 1,000-page novel, as detailed as J.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth. Islandia has similarly become a classic touchstone for those concerned with the creation of imaginary worlds. So, as I mentioned in the Untouched Books tag, I bought it about, I want to say 12 years ago. Never seen it anywhere since, not seen it online, not seen it in any shops. About 3 days after I mentioned it on the Untouched Books tag, I saw it in a second-hand bookshop. Completely different volume to this one, and I really like this. It's got a nice flopping feel to it as well. Nice font, nice biggish font as well. The second last book in this particular section, which I don't think you could have a Mammoths tag if you read an element of science fiction at all. You're bound to have this particular author, because I'm not convinced that he's written, or I think he might have written one book in non-mammoth size, but everything these days and for the last few years has been of a mammoth type, and that's of course Peter F. Hamilton. This one's The Reality Dysfunction, first in a series. This is a biggie. 12.25. Yeah, enough said. If you read science fiction, you're bound to have come across Peter F. Hamilton. Finally, an Indian detective novel for you, and it's Sacred Games by Vikram Chandra. This one is 946. 7 years in the making, Seiko Games is an epic of exceptional richness and power. Vikram Chandra's novel draws the reader deep into the life of Detective Sartaj Singh and into the criminal underworld of Ganesh Gaitonde, the most wanted gangster in India. So we now get onto the section that I've created for books that are a little bit either overrated or that I didn't much care for. This first one is one that I didn't much care for, and it's the Illuminatus trilogy by Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson. This is this is a monster. This is it's only 805. It felt like a lot more. I believe it's quite a cult book, written in, I'm going to say late 60s, early 70s. That was 1975. Wrong again. It feels like late 60s because all the way through it, and even up to the end, it feels trippy. It feels like I need to ingest various pharmaceutical substances in order to understand it. It's just really hard to get to grips with. And even once I got to the end, I still was absolutely no nearer and didn't have a clue what it was about. It's just an odd book. So I was 7 when this was written, and I think you probably need to be maybe a little bit older and understand some of the reference, because there are some other cultural references in the book as well. But on the whole, considering it's a cult book, it did absolutely nothing for me. And like I say, got to the end, and I was as clueless at the end as I was at the beginning. So that's the Illuminatus trilogy. I would say that that wasn't worth the money. Now we get onto a book that I consider to be, this is going to be very controversial. I think this is an extremely overrated book, particularly the final 70 pages. It's about 1,000 pages long. The first 900 or so pages are really good. It suits the author's style to a T. Rich tapestry of character creations and scene descriptions. But the final 70 pages, I would even go so far as to say that they're one of the worst 70 pages I've read in any book that I've read in my life. And it's It by Stephen King. It's not really a horror book, although it tries to weave a horror type atmosphere during the book, but it's essentially a coming of age novel. But the final 70 pages are they're just downright poor, in my opinion. The novel built and built and built tension, and then to finish in the way that it does, and I'm not going to say much more because I don't want to give it away, although a lot of people have probably seen the film anyway. But I am a Stephen King fan, but if you're looking to get into Stephen King, I would say don't touch it within the first 10 Stephen King books that you read. Is it worth the read, as in the tag? It probably is, because, like I said, the first 900 pages are quite sublime in places, but it's overridden by those final 70 pages, which, like I say, just not great. It fitted to a T the theory at the time that Stephen King had trouble writing decent endings. I always thought that if you took Clive Barker's imagination, Stephen King's creation of characters, and perhaps James Herbert's finishing power to books, you'd have a really great horror novel concept. Stephen King's not the greatest ender of novels, and this is similar. This is I said 2.5 books that I feel are a bit overrated. It's The Stand. Again, probably a controversial pick for many Stephen King fans at 1,325 pages. Many people complain that it's too long because this is the complete unabridged version, which I think includes perhaps 250 to 350 pages more than was originally released. I don't mind that. It gives a, like I mentioned in a previous video, I like the episodes of scene creation, character creation, where people think he goes on a bit. I honestly don't think he does. It's nice to read all that. But I saw a video recently. It cropped up in my algorithm on YouTube, and it was a Stephen King interview with somebody where he had to name 5 books that he liked, and he was talking about other books as well. And he started talking about The Stand, and it was interesting because it said that he really didn't like. He got to the stage halfway through the book where he'd created so many characters that he thought, "How the heck am I going to conclude this book satisfactorily?" He did conclude it, but I just got a little bit of a sense that he wasn't overly happy with the way that it had, not necessarily the way that it ended, but with parts of the book. And for me, I don't like the second half of it. There's a character called Randall Flagg who's the baddie. I'm not giving any spoilers away here, but some of the things that he does are all right. Yeah, they're of a supernatural nature, but I just find them a bit unrealistic, and I could never take to it. And the first half of the book is devoted to people succumbing to the plague and a band of stragglers surviving the plague, and they end up in, I think it's Denver at one stage. And that's the first half of the book, and then the second half of the book is what happens to them and how this Randall Flagg character gets integrated within them. And that second half of the book, I struggle with it because it didn't really capture me imagination or delight. I read it, it was good, but not great. So that's why it's a half. It's a good book, but it's not as great as what people say it is, in my opinion. There are far better Stephen King stories and novels. My favourite Stephen King story of all time is The Mist. Couldn't be any more off the mark than being from a Mammoth, in that it's about 140, 150 pages, I think it was. That's The Mist. My favourite novel by King is The Dead Zone. There's plenty of others as well, but I struggle finding delight in the Stand like other people do. And that leaves one left, and that's the book that I don't own, but I want to own and I want to read. And it's partly because of Alan at Alan's Reads. He's mentioned it so often over the last year after he read it, and he really raves about it. And it's something that I've not got to before. And to a certain extent, I wouldn't say I'm intimidated by its size, but I know that if I start that, I'm not starting anything else anytime soon. And it's The Count of Monte Cristo. I'm not going to get it. I'm definitely going to get it and go through it at some point, because how can I not, having seen how much pleasure Alan got out of it on going from his videos. So yeah, The Count of Monte Cristo is the final book in this tag. It's a book that I don't own, but I really want to own. So that's all of them. That's quite a few books there. It's a little bit more than the 3 or more from the original tag, but I just figured, why not? Mammoth books are fantastic, and they can fall in different categories, so I did it. I've nominated some people who I don't think have done the tag yet, and I've nominated you because I genuinely would like to know what books you rate over the 800 page mark. Don't feel any pressure to do as many categories as I have, because I've probably gone a little bit overboard. But if you'd like to do a video of your choices, then that would be great. If you've liked the video, by all means click subscribe, click like. It really would help me out. And I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.